Hello, I'm Hannah, and this is Hannah's Books. Today, I want to talk about some of the bookish being together that I've been doing lately, since my video a couple of times ago. I should say first that I was honored by all of your beautiful comments on that video, in an effort to make sure that the only people who watched would be people who already knew me well, and who would be less likely to leave weird comments. I started the video out with a long ramble about eczema, of all things. That ploy was utterly unsuccessful. But nevertheless, the comments I received were incredibly kind and generous. Thank you all. Today, I'm going to talk about neither itchiness nor politics. What I want to share is simply the highlights of one of my days last weekend, where I followed through with my commitment of, quote, all being together now and for the coming years too. I met up with a couple of friends, one my age and one a generation younger, to visit a quirky used bookstore in Hyattsville, Maryland, a very nearby neighborhood, and a local distillery next door to the bookstore. My friends and I had a lovely time, and I think we might do it again sometime soon. I first heard about the bookstore the week before I went, and it has a quirky name, My Dead Aunt's Books. It's a local independent bookstore with an owner committed to, quote, keeping Aunt Gingy's memory alive by bringing old books back from the dead. My somewhat blurry memory was that when the family was cleaning out their dead aunt's attic, they ran across hundreds of books, quote, all smut. Well, while that would be an excellent story, it isn't quite accurate. In short, the current owner inherited books that his aunt and her husband had read and collected over the years, and they loved to collect mysteries and horror, among many other things. I'll try to link to a longer version of that story from a local newspaper below. Of course, after being in business, both online and in person, the store sells tons of books that have nothing to do with the Dead Aunt's collection. Very interestingly, the bookstore shares its store with two different vintage stores, Suffragette City Vintage and Cheeky Vintage, which sell vintage clothing and various vintage housewares. And the vintage items and the used books are fairly intertwined. So much so that while I was browsing, I was sometimes unsure which items were from which stores. Were the old comic books part of the bookstore? How about the records? And how about the stacks of Dover books of paper dolls? I will talk a little more about one of those a bit later in the video when I show you what I bought. But first, let me take you on a little visual tour of what the bookstore looks like, and a few things that popped out at me even though they didn't actually come home in my tote bag. So let me tell you about the books I picked up at this wonderful little store. The first I want to mention is The Year of Proust by Phyllis Rose. If the author's name sounds familiar, it may be because she wrote the widely known book Parallel Lives about the marriages of 5 Victorian writers, including George Eliot. Her book, The Year of Proust, is partly about her decision to read Proust over the course of a year, and also about everything that Proust's writing made her contemplate in her past experiences and memories, from marriage to mortality. That is, she talks about how she's reading Proust and also reading her own life. I was especially interested in picking up this book because I'm going to be reading at least the first book of Proust's, In Search of Lost Time, starting in January, along with a whole group of fellow readers, including Greg at Another Bibliophile Reads, who will be hosting a discussion over on his Discord. I am not yet making a commitment to read all of the books of In Search of Lost Time over the course of the year, but if the first volume works for me, I definitely will keep going. And I would love for all of you who are interested to join in with us. Okay, the next book I picked up is a biography of the poet Anne Sexton, written by Diane Middlebrook. I've been thinking about this book a lot for the last year. I had a copy of it on my shelf for many years, next to the complete poems of Anne Sexton, and an edition of her letters, and a memoir by her daughter, Linda Gray Sexton, about their relationship with each other, called Searching for Mercy Street, My Journey Back to My Mother. I kept the complete poems, but in a fit of clearing off some of my shelves to make room for new books, I dropped the memoir and biography in a little free library, and I regretted it pretty quickly, and I went to see if it might still be there, but no luck. So when I found this one, I immediately picked it up. I'm not actually an enormous fan of Anne Sexton. I do really like her transformations, the retelling of Grimm's folk tales in the form of poems, about which I chose to write a long paper for a college course. And at the time, I lived in Boston, the area where Sexton lived. Peter Gabriel's song Mercy Street was one of my poet friends' very favorite song, mostly because it was written about Sexton. Many of you know that one of my favorite subgenres is literary biography, and I love to read biographies of authors. While I know I had read letter collections of a couple of different authors, I think that Middlebrook's study of Anne Sexton might have been the first literary biography I ever read. And I should have kept it, but now I have a copy of it to make up for my rash decision to discard it. One of the reasons I've been thinking about this book lately is because the biographer Heather Clark has announced that she herself is working on Anne Sexton. Heather Clark wrote the wonderful biography of Sylvia Plath, Red Comet, The Short Life and Blazing Art of Sylvia Plath, which I adored. And she's finishing a rough draft of a book about the Boston years of Plath, Sexton, Maxine Hong Kingston, and Adrienne Rich, called Walking in the Dark. And it looks like she's signed a contract to write a full biography of Anne Sexton, too. I'm really looking forward to both of those books. The last thing I picked up is not exactly a book. It is sort of a leaflet put out by Dover, who, when I was little, sold a great number of books where you could punch out paper dolls and a wide variety of outfits. I know I had a bunch of them, Kate Greenaway stuff, inauguration gowns of the spouses of incoming presidents, etc. And today, when I saw the bookstore's large collection, I just could not resist picking up paper dolls of Franklin Roosevelt and his family. Let me show you some of the pictures. My young friend found a few really interesting books, including one by Naomi Klein. And my friend Patty, who you watched sniff the adulting candle in the little video tour, bought a book about infusing alcohol with flavorful ingredients to make special cocktails. She got really excited about another related book, The Encyclopedia of Cocktails, until she looked a little more closely at the title. It was The Encyclopedia of Cockatiels. To cheer Patty up after that moment of defeat, we headed right next door to the local distillery, Sans Foi. They specialized in the creation of rye whiskeys, Dutch gin, and fruit brandies, all made from local ingredients. Rye and barley from Maryland farms, the produce of their own orchards, but also fruit from local farms and sometimes even wild fruits. In general, their business focuses on sales of bottles of the various liquors they have distilled, I think. The alcohol is not cheap, but it might be less than you think something crafted in such a special way might be. And on Thursday and Friday nights and Saturday afternoons, they serve cocktails as well. And the price of the cocktails really isn't all that different from happy hour prices at other local establishments. I ordered a martini with their special barrel-aged Dutch-style gin. It was an amazing drink. First, it was lovely to watch the owner/bartender make the drink for me with his beautiful tools. I wish I had filmed it. The gin tasted almost like whiskey. Very interesting, and very much to my own tastes. The younger of my two companions, who is of legal age, also got an individual cocktail, but Patty ordered a beautifully served tasting flight. When we head back to my dead aunt's books, we'll definitely be coming back to the distillery to top off the trip. It was a lovely afternoon of being together with these people I love. Okay, that will do it for today. Thank you so much for joining me here on Hannah's Books. See you soon.